Now, Russia has come under fire at the UN Security Council over its comments about the suspected chemical weapons attack in northern Syria. The U.S., the U.K., and France are demanding an investigation. Noah Adam has this report.
Russia claims the civilians died due to the leakage of poison from rebel weapons after one of their stockpiles was hit by Syrian airstrikes. This assertion has been widely rejected by world powers, who say the Syrian government knowingly targeted the rebel munitions. Britain, France and the United States presented a draft resolution during the UN Security Council's emergency meeting on Wednesday, condemning the attack and demanding an investigation. Russia said the text was hastily prepared but did voice support for an inquiry. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres said war crimes are going on in Syria, but when asked if he thought Assad was responsible, he called for a clear probe to remove all doubts.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on a Wednesday night. And we begin tonight with President Trump in front of the world on Syria, on Bashar al-Assad, on the apparent chemical attack that killed so many families and children. The president today condemning the horrific attack, killing dozens in Syria, calling it, quote, an affront to humanity, saying his attitude toward Syria has changed very much.
Welcoming the King of Jordan to the White House, the president firmly condemned the chemical weapons attack in Syria, placing the blame squarely on the Syrian government.
It is a terrible affront to humanity, I can tell you, terrible.
And later at a joint press conference in the Rose Garden, he suggested there should be retaliation.
These heinous actions by the Assad regime cannot be tolerated.
In the past, again and again, Donald Trump said the U.S. should not get involved, tweeting, "Syria is not our problem," when President Obama proposed protecting civilians. And after Assad's massive chemical weapons attack in 2013, he tweeted, "Do not attack Syria, fix USA," adding, "If you do, many bad things will happen, and from that fight, the U.S. gets nothing." But now the president says these horrific images have changed his views on the Assad regime.
Well, I do change, and I am flexible, and I'm proud of that flexibility. And I will tell you that attack on children yesterday had a big impact on me, big impact. And it's very, very possible, and I will tell you it's already happened, that my attitude toward Syria and Assad has changed very much.
Trump blames President Obama for the humanitarian crisis, but acknowledges it's now his challenge to solve.
I now have responsibility, and I will have that responsibility and carry it very proudly. I will tell you that. It is now my responsibility.
Can I just quickly ask you if the chemical attack crosses a red line for you?
It crossed a lot of lines for me. When you kill innocent children, innocent babies, little babies, with a chemical gas that is so lethal, people were shocked to hear what gas it was. That crosses many, many lines, beyond the red line, many, many lines.
But he gave no indication of what he may do.
Well, one of the things I think you've noticed about me is militarily, I don't like to say where I'm going and what I'm doing. I'm not saying I'm doing anything one way or the other, but I'm certainly not going to be telling you.
Today, King Abdullah made it clear the world is looking to President Trump.
I believe under your leadership, we will be able to unravel this very complicated situation.
And the president, while again blaming his predecessor, is promising to take action.
The world is a mess. I inherited a mess. We're going to fix it. We're going to fix it.
And John Carl with us tonight live at the White House. And John, the president made it clear he won't say what he's going to do. But do we have any kind of timeline for possible action here?
White House officials say this is very high on the agenda. In fact, the president himself chaired a meeting of his National Security Council today here at the White House on the chemical weapons attack. But David, no timeline yet for a response.
All right, John Carl leading us off. John, thank you. We just heard President Trump saying their Syria crossed not only a red line, but several lines. We also saw UN Ambassador Nikki Haley today holding up pictures saying if the UN doesn't act, the U.S. may have to.
How many more children have to die before Russia cares? The United States sees yesterday's attack as a disgrace at the highest level, an assurance that humanity means nothing to the Syrian government. When the United Nations consistently fails in its duty to act collectively, there are times in the life of states that we are compelled to take our own action.
United States President Donald Trump believes that his efforts will bring a lasting resolution to the Middle East conflict. During a meeting at the White House with Jordan's King Abdullah II, Trump said that, quote, "I'm working very, very hard on trying to finally create peace between the Palestinians and Israel," end quote. The president went on to praise the efforts of King Abdullah and the United States' relationship with the Hashemite kingdom, saying that, quote, "The king has been a really tireless advocate for a solution," adding, "He's going to help me with that, and help me at the highest level. We will be consulting with him very closely in the days ahead," end quote. While neither leader mentioned the two-state solution, King Abdullah spoke glowingly of the Jordanian-backed Saudi proposed peace initiative as a path towards resolving the decades-long conflict. The king was quoted as saying that the Arab Peace Initiative offers a historic reconciliation between Israel and the Palestinians, as well as all member states in the Arab League. He added that it ensures statehood for the Palestinians, but also security, acceptance, and normal ties for Israel with all Arab countries, and hopefully all Islamic countries. The Arab Peace Initiative, endorsed by the Arab League in 2002, would require Israel to withdraw from parts of the West Bank based off of mutually agreed upon land swaps, in order to enable a formulation of a Palestinian state. The initiative also calls for negotiated, mutually agreed upon resolution to the Palestinian refugee crisis and the initiation of full diplomatic relations between Israel and the member states of the Arab League.
South Korea has successfully test-launched a new ballistic missile with a range of 800 kilometers, meaning it can target any location in North Korea.
South Korea successfully test-launched a new homegrown 800-kilometer range ballistic missile. This is a threat to North Korea, as the missile can target all the regime's key facilities when fired from the south. If fired from the south's southernmost island of Jeju, the missile can reach Sinŭiju, a North Korean city bordering China. The new missile is the result of a 2012 deal between Seoul and Washington, in which South Korea agreed to extend the range of its ballistic missiles to 800 kilometers, more than double the previous 300 kilometers.
In accordance with the agreement between Seoul and Washington in 2012, we have developed an 800-kilometer range ballistic missile that can carry a 500-kilogram warhead. I cannot give details on the specifics.
According to Seoul-based Yonhap News on Thursday, citing a defense source, the missile tested was a Hyunmoo missile, and the test took place at the missile test site of the Agency for Defense Development in Anheung, Gyeonggi-do Province. Defense Minister Han Min-gu reportedly inspected the launch, and the missile was said to have met all requirements for a normal test, including flight and accuracy. South Korea currently has several Hyunmoo-type missiles in its arsenal, including the Hyunmoo 2A, the Hyunmoo 2B, and the Hyunmoo 3, which have ranges of 300, 500, and 1,000 kilometers. The news comes just a day after North Korea's latest launch of a ballistic missile, which flew 60 kilometers before landing in the East Sea.
Russian submarine patrols have reportedly reached a level of operation not seen since the Cold War. According to the head of the Russian Navy, Admiral Vladimir Korolov, the Russian submarine fleet last year spent more than 3,000 days at sea, a level unseen since before the end of the Cold War. During the Cold War, the Soviet Navy had the largest submarine fleet in the world, with more than 270 submarines. However, the country's Navy suffered after the collapse of the Soviet Union, when a lack of money caused many ships to be scrapped or abandoned. It has grown stronger in recent years through an arms modernization program. Korolov made the comments on March 31st during the commissioning of the country's newest nuclear-powered attack submarine, the Kazan. The admiral lauded the launch of the multi-role submarine, saying that it, quote, represents the cutting edge of nuclear submarine design.
7 people have been arrested by police investigating the deadly metro bomb attack in St. Petersburg. However, authorities say the men of Central Asian origin are not accused of being directly linked to the bombing. but they're being held on suspicion of recruiting for radical Islamist groups. Witnesses say the suspected Kyrgyz-born suicide bomber moved into an apartment in the city just a month ago. This neighbor says he was a quiet, calm neighbor. He didn't cause any disturbance. He recently moved in. We saw him only a couple of times. A civilized man always said hello. He wasn't seen or heard. There was no noise. 14 people died in Monday's attack, including the bomber, and about 50 others were injured. The 22-year-old suspect was born in Kyrgyzstan but held a Russian passport. As investigations continue into the attack, remembrance services have been held for some of the victims.
60 Daesh terrorists are killed and a neighborhood is recaptured during recent operations by the Iraqi army and popular mobilization units in western Mosul. The Iraqi army confirms 30 Daesh terrorists have been killed in shelling 2 key command posts near the city's 5th bridge. 30 more terrorists were killed by the popular mobilization units in 2 villages in western Mosul. The Iraqi troops managed to release the Al-Maghrib neighborhood in western Mosul. The Air Force has dropped thousands of leaflets warning the residents about air raids in the near future. Civilians are evacuating the area through the safe passages provided by the army. Iraqi officials have confirmed around 430,000 people have evacuated the city. There are concerns Daesh terrorists could use hundreds of thousands trapped civilians as human shield.
This is what the Pakistan-Afghanistan border looks like from the air. It's mostly mountainous and difficult to control. Once a sanctuary for the Pakistani Taliban, it is now a heavily militarized zone. These soldiers look out for infiltrators who frequently take advantage of the terrain to cross into Pakistan. But now Pakistan is planning to build a fence, which will run the entire length of the border. It has already completed work on fencing the main border crossing at Torkham in the Khyber Pass.
But Pakistan, has continued to emphasize the need for effective border management. And you know that this is important to combat terrorism.
Afghanistan blames Pakistan for allowing the Afghan Taliban to launch attacks from Pakistani soil. While Pakistan complains, the Afghan government is not doing enough against the Pakistani Taliban, who have regrouped on the Afghan side. Last year, Pakistan completed work on an 1,100-kilometer barrier, 3 meters deep and 4 meters wide, to prevent smugglers, terrorists and drug traffickers entering Pakistan's Baluchistan province. Now it plans to seal off the entire border, despite objections from the Afghans.
The Assembly set out tough red lines for the negotiations. The bloc's Brexit negotiator Michael Barnier rejected the call from British Prime Minister Theresa May and said no Brexit negotiations and trade agreement talks at the same time, despite the parallel talk approach being on May's wish list. The EU Parliament adds that starting free trade negotiations with countries outside the EU before Brexit could violate the bloc's laws and called on Britain to honour its obligations as a member of the European Union.
You've shown yourselves with these demands to be vindictive, to be nasty. All I can say is thank goodness we're leaving. You're behaving like the mafia. You think we're a hostage. We're not. We're free to go. We're free to go. And 85, and now I do understand.
Onorevole Farage.
I do understand.
Onorevole Farage. Io sto garantendo a lei la possibilità di parlare e di dire tutto quello che vuole, però quando si parla di mafia, lei dice che un Parlamento si comporta come la mafia, questo per quanto mi riguarda è inaccettabile.
Okay, all right. If you're not, no, I do understand. I do understand, sir, Mr. President, I do understand national sensitivities. I'll change it to gangsters. All right? And that is how we're being treated.
The chorus of protests for Jacob Zuma to resign have been ringing out loudly. They have been made before, but this time the political mood has changed, with South Africans still in shock over the president's drastic and unilateral cabinet reshuffle.
I've decided to make changes to the national executive in order to improve efficiency and effectiveness.
That included sacking respected Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan.
So the one thing we must emphasize is our souls are not for sale.
The economic fallout has been swift. Ratings agency Standard & Poor's responded by downgrading South Africa's credit rating to junk status for the first time in 17 years, sending the rand, bonds and banking shares tumbling. But the political cost could be the biggest price paid by Jacob Zuma and the African National Congress. Zuma has officially lost the support of two of the ANC's key allies, the Trade Union Federation COSATU and the South African Communist Party. They have both called for his resignation, and it's threatening to split the ANC. Jacob Zuma's nickname is the Teflon President. He's facing 783 corruption charges. Last year, the Public Protector released a 355-page report detailing allegations that his presidency had been captured by a wealthy Indian family, the Guptas, with whom his family has close ties. Zuma has been ordered to pay back taxpayer money spent on upgrading his home. And he's survived no confidence votes in Parliament and from his own party. But was this latest move a step too far for even Zuma's supporters? In December, the ANC is due to elect its new head in the lead-up to the 2019 elections. Zuma has been promoting his ex-wife, former African Union chairwoman Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, as a successor. But will the president's actions mean the party will be forced to move in a new direction for its own political survival?
Playing out tonight amid a shakeup on President Trump's National Security Council. The president's chief political strategist, Steve Bannon, has now been removed from the National Security Council. What's behind the move?
At the White House today, a staff shakeup. President Trump reversing his controversial decision to put his chief strategist, Steve Bannon, on the National Security Council. Bannon's presence on that council drew harsh criticism. A lightning rod, his right-wing views on nationalism and Islam no secret.
It's pretty dark here in Europe right now, but there's something actually much darker, and that is Islam.
When the president added Bannon to the Principals Committee, he also excluded key military and intelligence officials and was accused of favoring politics over national security experience. Today's restructuring largely due to the growing influence of National Security Advisor General H.R. McMaster, who took on the job after Michael Flynn was fired after just 24 days. The military and intelligence leaders initially excluded, now restored to their permanent seats on the council. Vice President Mike Pence saying today, quote, "This is just a natural evolution to ensure the National Security Council is organized in a way that best serves the president in resolving and making those difficult decisions." White House officials say McMaster and Bannon share the same philosophy and vision, and there was no longer a need for Bannon on the council. They say Bannon has not been demoted.
CNET reports that Germany's cabinet on Wednesday voted to approve strict new standards that would force social media sites like Facebook and Twitter to regulate fake news and hate speech. The draft law includes fines of as much as €50 million for sites that fail to comply. The new rules call for social media sites to delete at least 70% of inappropriate and illegal posts within 24 hours of their postings. Facebook has pushed back against the rules, insisting that it takes the issue very seriously, but also calling it highly complex. Earlier this year, Facebook also announced a partnership with CorrectIV, a German third-party fact-checking organization.
German skincare brand Nivea has gotten a lot of backlash from its recent ad campaign. Social media users were quick to accuse the company of racism for the slogan "White is Purity" in its invisible for black and white deodorant ad. Nivea released a statement this week to apologize to those offended by the ad, saying the ad was part of a broader campaign for the deodorant in the Middle East that linked the color black with strength and white with purity. We never intended to hurt anybody or raise any wrong interpretation.
Next tonight, the ad trying to sell soda using themes of policing and race. Tonight, that ad has now been pulled after unleashing outrage across this country, including Martin Luther King Jr.'s own daughter. ABC's David Wright on the apology now.
Pepsi's edgy new web ad features reality star Kendall Jenner disarming racial tensions with a sugary beverage. The similarity with this image trivializing Black Lives Matter, according to some activists. The daughter of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. tweeted, "If only Daddy would have known about the power of Pepsi." This afternoon, Pepsi pulled the ad and apologized to Bernice King. But Pepsi has struggled before.
Come on, which one is he?
Pepsi ultimately pulled this Mountain Dew ad featuring a rambunctious goat in a police lineup with black men.
You better not snitch on a player.
Today, paparazzi caught up with Kendall Jenner in Paris.
Do you have anything to say about the Pepsi video? Do you have any regrets?
Pepsi does have regrets, saying it was trying to project a global message of unity, peace, and understanding, adding, "Clearly, we missed the mark." David Wright, ABC News, New York.
Swallowed by water, the town of Edgecombe is feeling the wrath of Tropical Storm Debbie. Its 2,000 residents ordered to leave after the Rangitucky River burst its banks.
We had to evacuate. The house is totally flooded now. We're not sure how bad it's going to get. I just got a frantic call from my partner to come home, and my boss said, "Oh, hey, look, they're closing Edgecombe." So I shot over the bridge, and then we had a lot of help from those fellas over there in that riverboat road there.
Many people were caught by surprise. Waters rose quickly, in some areas to as high as 2 meters. Buildings are engulfed. Roads are impassable. The New Zealand Defence Force is helping with rescue operations.
A lot of people are still in houses at the moment, but we're getting to them. A lot of the locals brought their equipment in, which is really helping out, but yeah, it's all going good.
This is meant to be the tail end of a cyclone which wreaked havoc in Australia last week. In the past few days, it's caused power outages, landslides, and now severe flooding in New Zealand. Meteorologists in both countries describe it as a once-in-500 years event.
Severe storms are predicted tonight from the Gulf of Mexico to the Midwest. In the south, tornadoes, hail, and flash floods threaten millions.
Severe weather gripped much of the southeast all day. In South Georgia, a noon tornado tore through several buildings. Weston, Georgia resident Calvin Friedman.
It was really bad because the top on the home house started peeling off. So we knew it was a very serious storm.
Flash flooding bloated Atlanta's Peachtree Creek. Vehicles were suddenly floating, and first responders had to make rescues in rafts. At least 5 reported twisters touched down in Georgia and South Carolina, where severe weather was forecast to rumble through in 3 separate waves. Whoa. An Uber driver shot this video of flash flooding near Columbia. WBZ Chief Meteorologist Eric Fisher.
It's been a really active start to the stormy season across the U.S., well ahead of the pace of the past few years. Today, one of the most active days we've seen, coming in a couple of waves. We'll be tracking these severe storms right into the day tomorrow.
This is an agricultural business. Scott, the manager, told us he sent all of his employees home about 11 o'clock this morning. It was the right call. 90 minutes later, a twister barreled through here and left this business in ruins.
Come on, you guys, let's go. Who's gonna go potty? Potty, potty, potty. Potty, potty, potty. Come on, Vinny. Boys, please. Seriously? Boys, I'm freezing. Kitty, kitty, kitty. Where's the kitty? Really?